Hi everyone. I would like to talk to you a little bit more about layers. It is true what they say. If you don't know layers, you don't know Photoshop. So layers in the layers panel, probably one of the absolute most important panels available to you in Photoshop. I won't get into it, but I actually recall Photoshop before layers. And I have to tell you, the layers panel, it's a game changer. So first of all, here's what your layers panel looks like when you first open any image that you have scanned or that you have photographed digitally and then opened in Photoshop. Those files that you open initially before making any changes open as a single layer. We call this a flattened image, meaning it does not have layers. That layer is automatically called by Photoshop the background layer. And that layer, if you look at the panel, is automatically locked and automatically visible. By the way, the layers panel does give you these little eyeballs here. Those little eyeballs allow you to toggle or change whether or not you can see or not see what is within that layer. Right now I can't toggle the visibility on this layer because it is a locked background layer. There are no other layers to see. Also, your layers panel and all of your panels in Adobe software have this little hamburger menu, right? When I say hamburger, it's usually just 3 lines, right? 3 stacked lines, sometimes 4 stacked lines. User interface designers reference or refer to those type of menus that you see on websites and also in these panels as hamburgers because they kind of look like hamburgers, right? But anytime you click on one of those hamburger menus in your panels within all Adobe software, you get a pull-down menu. In this pull-down menu, to give you an idea of the amount of things that you can do with layers in the layers panel, right? The fact that this pull-down menu just kind of goes on forever is really important. As you guys are learning Photoshop, you're going to be learning how to create new layers, how to get things on their own layers. You're also going to learn how to merge layers that need to be merged. You'll learn how to name layers, rearrange layers. Right now, I can't do any of all that stuff because all I have is one layer. This is a flattened image, and that layer is called background. So I have, if you recall, the last video I did for you guys when I was talking about selecting, I have this grapefruit slice here selected, is accurately selected. And if I zoom in really far, you'll see it's super accurate in that it omits or it leaves out this whitish edge along the edge of my grapefruit. This is important because I do not want to include in my selection area pixels that I really don't want. And if I were to do something like take this grapefruit selection and put it on its own layer, everything inside of that selection is going to come with it. So if I have a white edge or a white halo of pixels that are included in this selection, that white edge and that white halo is going to come with it when I go to put this on its own layer. I don't want that to happen because that's going to tempt me to do something really dumb, which is to use destructive editing techniques to erase that white edge of pixels using my eraser. I'll probably say it many more times, but I'm going to say it again. Don't use your eraser tool in Photoshop. It's destructive. It will permanently remove pixels, making it possible for you to not get those pixels back if you decide you really kind of wanted them. You would have to redo from scratch that whole task that you did in order to do it correctly. So here we have the grapefruit slice is selected. Now, there's a hard way and an easy way to get this onto its own layer. The hard way would be this. The hard way would be to use the layers panel to create a new layer, select the pixels that you want to select, which they are, and then copy those pixels, select that new layer that I wanted it put on, and then go to edit and select paste. Photoshop makes it easier though for me. It takes out a few of those extra steps by doing automated processes, right? They're like shortcuts to getting there. Right now I have these pixels selected. All I need to do is copy and then paste, or Command C and Command V, and voila, check it out. I have a layer right here with my grapefruit slice on that layer. Let me tell you, you can't really see an extra grapefruit slice, right? Because when you copy and paste pixels in Photoshop, not only does it make a new layer and put those pixels on that new layer, you can even see it in this layer panels preview, but it also copies and pastes them directly in the same location of where you copied them. So you can't see those duplicated pixels initially. You would then need to grab your Move tool in Photoshop to move those pixels in that new layer if you wanted to be able to see that you actually have 2 grapefruit slices now. One that's on your original background layer, and the other that had been copied and pasted on top of it onto this new layer, and in this case called layer 1. The cool thing is this. I can move, rotate, scale, relocate this grapefruit slice a gazillion, million, billion different times, and never once will I do anything to negatively impact or destroy this background layer. This background layer is totally untouched. I have not untouched. I have not made any changes or edits to that background layer. Instead, what I have done is I have placed it onto its own layer where I can make any change that I want to with this grapefruit without harming anything else. You might also remember when I was showing you guys earlier that that I had selected this this bow tie pasta here, so I'm going to load that selection. The channel that I named it as was bow tie pasta, so I'm going to select bow tie pasta for my channel name, click OK, and you'll see this bow tie pasta is selected. Now, this bow tie pasta is still on the background layer, yes? It is not on layer 1. As a matter of fact, you'll see this little grid of gray pixels on layer 1 is showing me a transparency, meaning there are no pixels in those locations that are white, they're not black, they're not filled with colors, they're not, right? It's the absence of pixels is when you see this grayish grid here inside of your layers panel. So the bow tie pasta, right, is right now, it's on the background layer. So if I go to grab my move tool and move those selected pixels, it's going to tell me I can't do that. Right? And the reason why and actually what it's telling me is the truth, that I'm making a user error. Right now, the selection that I have is empty. And the reason why it's empty is because I am on layer 1, where that area of pixels is empty. If I want to copy and paste the selection of the bow tie pasta, I have to click on my background layer first, and now I can go to Edit, Copy, and then Edit and Paste to get my bow tie to be on it. So let me grab there we go, to get my bow tie on its own layer as well. The way layers works is the order of copy and paste. So, based upon which layer you have selected when you do your copy and paste. So if you're on the background layer, anytime you copy and paste something from the background layer, it's going to add a new layer, but it's going to add it directly above the background layer. So right now I have my layer 1 with my grapefruit. I'll probably want to rename that. Yes, by double clicking, I can rename that layer. Layer 1 doesn't tell me a whole lot, but I might want to layer it grapefruit. Or for the sake of tutorial 2, if you're in Graphic Design Essentials, you might want to call it something like the mouth. Bow tie pasta, right? You might want to call that just bow tie. But something that lets you know what is on that layer, so that you don't have to guess what's on layer 1 and guess what's on layer 2. And that becomes very important as you end up with a file that has 50 layers, right? It's really hard to find what you're looking for if everything's named layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 25, layer 26. After a while, you're like, I don't even know what's on these layers. So name your layers. It lets you know what's on those layers. You can also use the Layers panel to rearrange what is in your layers. The rule of layers is this. Whatever is your top layer, yes, is the one that's going to look like it's in front of other layers, on top of, right? So if it's on top in your Layers panel, it's on top on your canvas. If you want to, you can rearrange those layers just by grabbing a layer, dragging it above or below other layers, and you'll notice now my bow tie is on the top of my Layers panel. It is also on the top of my grapefruit slice and my melon or background layer. Right? So these things, I'm able to move them, change them, modify them independently of anything else. By the way, as long as with your move tool you have this little button checked in your options panel along the top, as long as show transform controls is clicked on, as long as that little check mark is there, you can, with the bounding box, it's called a bounding box, that appears on your objects that are selected on a layer, you can hover near a corner to change your move tool to a rotate tool. Oh my goodness, yes. You can also hover on a corner to say scale down or scale up. Don't scale up. Never scale up, by the way, for raster. All you're doing is making pixels larger. Do not do it. You can scale down all you want because it makes your pixels smaller. But another rule of Photoshop is never let anyone see your pixels. And look at these pixels here, you guys. It looks very amateurish for people to be able to see your pixels. So I'm going to make sure that this is being scaled down, smaller than its original size. So I'm actually making those pixels smaller. So here we go. Look at that. Grapefruit slice. Yeah. If I wanted it as a mouth, no, maybe it's supposed to be the ears, which it is. Yes. Now, just a little tip. Those of you later on who are taking this tutorial at Valencia College, yes, we're going to actually have you place these ears. Yes, we're going to have you copying them. So they're 2 ears. Yeah. We're going to have you flip one of those ears in addition to rotating it. We're going to have you merge those ears onto their own layer so you don't have one ear on one layer and another ear on another layer. And later on in this tutorial, is one of the last steps, we're actually going to have you put these ears by rearranging the layers behind the melon. right? So at some point, you're going to have all of these objects, including the melon itself, on their own layers, and then you're going to use the layers panel to rearrange these layers, to merge layers, to name layers, and to do all the wonderful things that you want to be able to do with these objects without sacrificing at all your background layer.